Well, I have a radio station background, a 5 year AM radio station background from about 1989 to 1994. And I feel that that actually prepared me for nowadays. I think podcasting and blogging and streaming probably began around 2011 or maybe a couple years before. Uh, but I didn't get into it until 2011. I started experimenting with YouTube videos, and a few years later, a couple years later, 2014, through a good friend of mine that we grew up in the same neighborhood, he introduced me to a good buddy of his from Washington who actually came down to San Diego, Johnny McMahon. And Richard, my friend Richard White and Johnny McMahon, they came to my apartment where I was a maintenance supervisor. So I'm working hard with my hands and at the same time doing podcasts through earlier versions of podcasting and getting into blogging, which I've been doing ever since then. So it took a few years process to actually learn how other people are doing it, succeeding and failing, and at the same time working. You know that song, taking what they're giving because I'm working for a living. I'm still doing that. about 9 or 10 years later, still working for a living, but on my spare time doing podcasting, blogging, and rarely streaming now. I'm more audio and blogging. I'm more audio than anything. And I'm more blogging than I am video streaming. It all takes time, but it's not for lack of doing things. What it is with me is doing what I have time to do. So within that time, from 2018, I first met 3 Days in the Grave, the band, Southern California Christian rock band. And I wanted to be Johnny on the spot, like my radio days, right? Be on the spot, on-site reporting. And I interviewed 3 Days in the Grave after their set. And they were very friendly. And they told me about Imran Ahmed from Pakistan, and they told me about an internet radio station in the United Kingdom called Spectrum Radio. And not only is this an internet radio station, they also have an FM band in the United Kingdom. So my mind wasn't really all there for the interview because everything was real frustrating. Everybody was late for this venue where Cutlass was, Leon Patillo, former keyboardist for Santana, and, big name people, and everybody was late. 3 Days in the Grave was first up, and they only had time for one song. And they weren't upset or anything. It was a disappointment, but I'm the one that was upset. I was just thinking how cold-blooded everybody was. Most of us showed up when it was still dark at the park. I think it's called San Pedro Park, Light at the Lighthouse venue. It's an annual venue. So I had to find out who Imran Ahmed was. And a little further on the shelf, I needed to find out about Spectrum Radio, and I needed to find out about 3 Days in the Grave. And lo and behold, it turns out that Imran Ahmed is this fantastic musician from Pakistan, and they're good friends with 3 Days in the Grave, and the things that they have in common, among other things, is Josie Awards and the International Singer-Songwriters Association's awards. So these past 3 years since I've known 3 Days in the Grave personally, and I've gotten to know Imran Ahmed, I can't play enough of them on my podcast. It's total madness for my podcast. There's never a lack of new songs, and the big thing with me is I'm learning. There's this another independent artist, Sarah Mason. I first found out about her probably around 2008. In one of her songs, she says, "The fools stand only to fall, but the wise trip on grace." Those lyrics stuck with me so long because I trip out on the darndest things, and right now I always figured myself to be somebody that goes with the flow, and meeting Imran Ahmed online and playing his music, and 3 Days in the Grave, Kevin Farkas, Ricky Davis, so many others that they have all collaborated with. Mainly Imran Ahmed has collaborated with David Pollard. I just met him online a few months ago, and Daniel James, Colin Reed, he's another one. And I'm like, wow, these guys are all collaborating with Imran Ahmed with songs. And the real cool thing that happened is one of the songs, a brand new song, Imran actually asked me to play on my podcast. I had exclusive permission to be the first to play it, and that was Rockin' Rooster. You got to check out the song Rockin' Rooster, and it could be a double single release with another one called Angry Dog. Imran mentioned in one of his other videos, Angry Dog with 3 Days in the Grave. So these guys are not ashamed to be themselves, and I'm really impressed with all of them. And one of these days, hopefully next year, if not sooner, but at the next Independent Singer-Songwriters Association Awards, I'll probably be able to go there and hang out with them. Finally meet Imran Ahmed.